Well, good afternoon, good evening, whichever you're. See, we're in Joshua. If you want to go ahead and join us there, get settled in here. All right, I see the Hayneses. You guys are with us. Get this maximized. Changing around so I can try to maybe be more effective at seeing the comments come in. So, all right, so we're in Joshua chapter 6 tonight. We've looked at chapter 5. We've come all the way through, so we'll begin that tonight. Before we continue, let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. Our most glorious and loving Father, thank you so much for this time once again that we can be here to study your word and we can learn that how your people interacted with you and how the wisdom that you have revealed through this word. And as we look at this conquest of the land of Canaan and the fulfillment of the promise that you gave to Abraham so long ago, hopefully, Father, we can learn from this and be able to make ourselves stronger spiritually. Be with each of us as we journey through this world and help us to also be able to be fearless when it comes to standing for truth and for your desires, that we are focusing upon you and not let the world discourage us and persuade us from the truth. We pray for those who aren't able to be with us this evening. We pray that you be with them and help them to be able to be restored to us once again. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So we took a look at this book. We talked about how this is an amazing transition period. This very first phase of the first 6 chapters are establishing this transition from Moses coming to Joshua and getting the people ready to be able to be victorious. This is not a battle for just getting land. This is God's judgment coming upon the people of Canaan. And I cannot overemphasize that point because of the way people try to say that God somehow was a bloody God and he was so harsh and cruel, and that's not the God of the New Testament, and that somehow that, he just needed a place for his people to go. He had promised the land when Abraham was walking around on it, so now he's got to get rid of the people so he can then plant his people. No, this is a judgment. And it's more than that as well. It's not just a judgment on the people, but this is a judgment on the gods, the idols that they had been worshiping. The battle that they had in Egypt, God decisively destroyed all those pagan gods. To the people, they were real. They were something that they put their trust in, and they believed in them, and God decisively defeated all of them. Now, as he came across that amazing crossing, within that alone was an amazing crossing, miraculous, like the Red Sea. We talked about that last week. But once they come over, they're still not ready. They're still not ready to go into battle yet. And so he has them circumcise the males. And during that time afterwards, and they celebrate the Passover. There's a spiritual lackness that seemed to be occurring during those 40 years. There's something going on to where they were not as faithful as they should have been. And so that was preparing them. And then we come to this interesting point where Joshua is surveying at the end of chapter 5, verse 13. And as he is surveying, he comes across, he says, a man in verse 13. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there was a man standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and he said to him, "Are you for us? Or are you for our adversaries?" So at this point, he'd just seen a man, and a man with a sword. Joshua is surveying the first engagement, the battle. He's looking at the territory, the terrain, And then all of a sudden he sees a man with a sword, and it's like, okay, friend or foe? Challenging.
I think he knew it wasn't part of his party, so
Mhm.
maybe it was from the other party.
Yeah, that's interesting because everybody on that side of the river is a foe. But it's interesting. Now he asked him, he goes, are you friend or are you foe? So I kind of thought that was interesting. But the response is tying into this section of the book because he says, no, no. And it's like, wait a minute, no, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come. And so what he's saying there is that I'm not on a side, you're on my side. Because you'd think if he said, well, I'm the commander of the army of the Lord, Joshua, well, I'm on your side. So you're on my side then, aren't you? I mean, because you're the army of the Lord, we're the little armies, the soldiers of the Lord. But the point was to put into perspective that no. There's no side but my side. And then the way he tells him that get ready. It's basically trying to get him ready. I am here, and now I have come. So that's when it finally puts it into context to Joshua. And he falls down on his face to the earth, and he worshiped him. And he said, what does my Lord say to his servant? So we also talked about how that this is not an angel. This is not just a man. Hey, Mike, glad you could join us, Mike. So we see that he was not just a man, because Peter, when they tried to worship him in Cornelius' house, he said, get up, don't worship me, I'm just a man like you. In Revelation, we see John, when he fell down before an angel, the angel said, get up, don't do this. And then the next part, when he says, he said to him, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. What does that sound familiar like? The burning bush, Moses. See this, there's so many things showing, and it's a demonstration to Joshua that I'm with you. That's exactly what he told him in chapter 1. He said, I will not leave you. I am going to be with you. Be strong, be courageous. And I bet you, as Joshua is standing there looking at that city, he's thinking to himself, how do we bring the walls down? How are the men going to climb over these walls? And I've got a picture of some biblical archaeology where they look at the design of this city. It would have looked impossible to him. Now remember, it said he's near Jerusalem. He's near Jericho. He's surveying it. He's probably looking, okay, we're going to put the camp over here. What's the best approach that we're going to take the city on? And then there's this man standing there with his sword ready. He's ready, isn't he? He doesn't have it sheathed. It's out and ready. And he's saying, I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Get ready. I'm ready. So it's emboldening him to have that confidence that it's going to happen, and I'm here, and this is going to happen. They don't have a battle plan.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
And
they
he
don't
said,
have.
okay, well, tell me, he said, you're in charge here, Joshua, so tell me what you want me to do.
And what's the battle plan here? This is the first time they have attacked a city, a besieged city like this. All the other ones, the Amorites come out and try to fight them. All the battles that we have recorded, they were out in the open. The enemy was, a charge, and fight and battle and swords. But now Joshua's standing there and he's looking at the city going, And he looks and there's a man standing there and he's got a sword out, and it's the commander of the Lord's army. Now that they divide this, and it kind of makes it sound like that's the end of this, chapter 6. And then when he picks up, it makes it look like that, now we have something that's stopped. Because verse 1 is describing the condition in which those two are standing there looking. Okay, let's kind of put that. So you have the Lord of the army having this conversation with Joshua. They're standing there, and he says, take your sandals off. He does. But Joshua's wanting to know, what does my Lord say to his servant? What is our battle plan? What do you want? Since you're the commander. And so then 6 picks up and says, and now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went in, none came out. And the Lord said to Joshua, see, I've given Jericho into your hand, its kings and its mighty men of valor. And then so he goes through and he's showing him. You can see again, if you keep this scene going, you're looking, surveying. The Lord says, take your sandals off. And then he says, look, behold, the city is locked up, sealed up, inside and outside. And so I've given the city to you. Now remember, he's still looking at that city going, it doesn't really look like mine yet. Right? Okay, can somebody tell them? It's yours. It's all packaged up, and there it is. And it's like, yeah, but we still going to have to go over the walls or do something. You know, they didn't have field artillery. They didn't have dynamite or, gunpowder. So how are we going to get through this? Besieging a city was a very complex process back in the day. The city of Tyre, we look at Alexander the Great, we look at Babylon, we look at Jerusalem when it was besieged, and it was a war of attrition, and it was a war of time. You basically tried to starve them out. You just sat around and waited. You tried to sneak in and maybe make a few attacks like this, but it was just a long, drawn-out process. They don't have catapults. They don't have any of this modern technology. Most of that didn't come along until really Alexander the Great, that when he built battle rams and such where they would go in and they were able to attack these cities. So it's interesting. Here he is. He's given this to him. And I'm sure Joshua is in so much detail of how he's going to fight this that it's still kind of... So he tells him, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. He tells him in verse 3 and 4, you shall march around the city, all the young men of war going around the city once. For 6 days, you're going to do that. Go around at one time with all the men. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. So he gives them an order of battle, basically how they're going to line up. They're going to walk around the city. And I can see this because when I was an officer in the Army and I had to, give orders, I was an operations officer, and so we developed a 5-paragraph operations order. And it had everything from the mission. We'd start out with the mission statement, the goals, and we would go through and eventually get to the maneuver. What units were going to do what, how they would place themselves into positions, command structure, logistics, supplies, and go through this. And I remember many times, after I'd give this briefing, all of a sudden I'd have these young lieutenants, raising their hands kind of sheepishly, like, kind of afraid to ask, but they didn't get it. They still weren't, as able to understand it because they were overwhelmed by everything that's going on. So I kind of saw this if I was listening to the commander of the Lord's army briefing me and telling me how I'm going to take this city down. This is not the way you destroy a city. How do you take it down? But he goes on, let's bring in verse 5. He says, and when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people will shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat. And the people shall go up, every one straight before them. So it sounds really amazing. I mean,
sounds very simple.
Simple.
And on this, what I was thinking was, it's just like the instructions that were given to us, like in Acts. You repent, be baptized for forgiveness of your sins. And this is like, go around the city one time. This is what I want the priests to do now for 6 days. And then are you going to obey, or are you going to say, oh, surely that's not going to be right. We need to do a little bit more. We need to enhance this, because I just can't imagine this going, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. So to me, this is the instructions, and I'm with you when people say, God is a bloody God, or this. God's telling you what he wants you to do, and then you're the one blaming him because you're not doing what he wants to do, and he's going to show you. If you don't do what I've told you to do, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's just consequences. It's just like some people like to push authority and say, well, I really didn't think, if I ran the light twice, that maybe you not catch me. And that's people. Did you really mean what you said? Yes, God means what he says.
And this is, again, remember, they've got a lot of fighting to do. They've got a lot of war. They've got a lot of land. If they remembered the large amount of territory that they were to take from the Euphrates, all the way from Euphrates, that's way up almost into Turkey, modern-day Turkey, all the way down to Egypt. It's like, man, this is just day one.
Yeah.
And so the prep mentally for the people, spiritually, he has them. He elevated their leader by the crossing at Jordan. That's exactly what we saw. That after they crossed, God said to Joshua, I'm going to elevate you. I'm going to show people that I'm with you. And then when he did, after everybody crossed, we see again, it's written that said, see, I have now elevated you like Moses. So now the people have the confidence in the leadership. Then the next phase was what? Spiritual. Get the covenant relationship back right. Circumcise, celebrate the Passover. And next is this first battle and the anxiety of everybody. They're not battle-hardened soldiers. This is like a whole new invasion. It's like you can imagine like all the soldiers sitting on those boats as they're getting ready to go over to Normandy. They train, and they're sitting on them boats just waiting to get over the channel so that they could start that invasion. Within about 4 months after Normandy, man, they were hardened soldiers. There's no more wonders. There's no more doubts about how this is going to happen, how they're going to perform. Am I going to be soldier enough? Am I going to be able to be the warrior I need to be? And then so when you get this type of a plan, it's easy to fall back to the world's logic. This is another thing where, Paul said very clearly, God took the foolish things of the world and made them wise. He took the wisdom of the world and he made it foolishness on purpose. Because that's the way the world does everything. But that's not the way God does things. And that's a message to the people of Israel. We're not doing it your way. We're not doing it the way the successful kings of the world conquered territories. This is my war. You're coming along and you're my instrument. But I'm the one that's going to do the battle. I'm the one that's going to win. You got to be on my side. And so this is what it takes a lot of faith. You're going to walk around the city. What you're going to have is you're going to have half the soldiers up front, men of war. You're going to have the ark. You're going to have men of war. And you're going to have the 7 trumpets, 7 priests. You notice 7, 7, 7. You hear that? Each day, though, they're going to go once. And then for 6 days, they go once. Blast the horn. And you can just, even though Joshua would, because, he didn't have the ability to communicate through some form of like electronic devices, group text, soldiers of Israel. Okay, guys, we're going to march around 7 times, and then give them this detailed send and have a group chat, back and forth. And what did he do? Just like we've already seen, called in the commanders. He tells the commanders what the Lord of the army has told him, and then they go back and they communicate it. By the time you get down to the average soldier, they just kind of like, okay, well, what? We're going to, 6 days, we're just going to go out there. We're going to walk around once and go to camp. Walk around another day, go to camp, another day. And then at the last day, we're going to, when we hear those trumpets blow, we're going to shout, and then the walls are going to fall down. You're not doing this. That's the whole part of this victory, is that this is not about you. You're going to watch God's power without you picking up one weapon to bring those walls down. And this is a great one because of the type of city. Jericho is an interesting word. In the Hebrew, it has a couple of meanings. One, and it's a little bit of variations on the Hebrew. It can mean moon on flower. And I thought that was interesting when I was looking at that. And I'm like, but it is recognized by archaeologists as being like the most ancient city, over 3,000 years old to this date. I mean, this city is still looked at as like the most ancient city in existence. And now we think of everything in that area is dry, dead desert. This is a luscious, remember, they're right on the Jordan Plain. This is a luscious area, very rich. It's a great navigational point for trade. And so that's why this city was continually occupied. And the walls, though, if you look at the embankment as they would climb, they were very, very steep. Now, we don't have, pictures, of course, but by looking at the digs, and they've gone back, and over the years, this is one of those areas as well where we find where people have gone, oh, that's just silliness. Those walls, they didn't fall down. We would have seen them. And then it was, I think, in the late 50s, 60s, they dug deep enough, and they went, oh, here are the walls, here's the stones. They could see where, and it wasn't a normal earthquake that shook them. It was something very catastrophic that occurred. So they've been able to dig them up and show them. But to look, if you're standing on the bottom looking up at this fortress, this is what you'd kind of see as you're walking around the outside, looking up. How are we going to climb that? And when they fall, even then, we're going to have to go uphill. That's another tactical disadvantage, is fighting uphill. You always want the high ground. They're never going to have the high ground even when the walls come down. And how organized can you be on a charge? That's another thing, is how organized whereas if you're in an open area, you organize together, you get a group, a company together, and they are able to fight as a unit. They're going to be scrambling up and over this. Of course, this is going to devastate. I mean, when it does collapse, the collapse is going to be so thorough that there will be really no fighting then. It's going to be down to the point where there's no way to put up a defense at all. So no matter how they go up and over, that they're going to be victorious and able to kill and conquer. But they don't know this. From their side, they're looking up at these massive walls, and when this thing comes down, how in the world even then? And still, has anyone ever seen this happen? No one. No one's ever seen anything like this happen. And it wasn't just one wall, by the way. There were 2 walls. So there were 2 walls lined. And to get through one wall was enough, but to then get over across the top of that wall. So now let's talk about the city itself. When we consider the idea of this city, we already backing all the way up to whenever the 2 spies came in to spy out Jericho. When they went into the city, one of the things that they learned was, one, the people were very aware of their history. They knew who they were. They knew that they were successful, and they linked it to their God. They saw that it was their God, and they were afraid of them. And remember, when they came across the river, the kings of Canaan, their hearts melted. So as soon as they crossed over, Jericho's on red alert. They're ready for an attack, so they see and they lock up. There's a lot of symbolic things that I read about, in reference to the taking of Jericho, and I think that there are some simple overviews that I'd like to share as far as some of the symbology and the types when you say what this represents. We already talked about the people, but now let's look at the much higher level of view on this. What do we have? We have a city of sin, a city that has been trying to live their lives and worship their gods. Sound familiar? Over time and time again, we find cultures and nations who try to follow their own devices. They worship their own gods. They become so ungodly that a judgment comes upon them. Now, when we look at the fall of these civilizations and such, we don't ever point them out and say, oh, that was a judgment of God. That was a judgment of God. Oh, we read about the one that happened in India. Oh, that's a judgment of God. Now, I can't point out everything in every little city or empire that collapsed, but we can tell, one, we can learn real quick, as we have already, that Canaan had been delayed, and God's graciousness and long-suffering had gone for over 400 years. That's what he told Abraham. He said, your people are going to go into Egypt, to a foreign land, for over 400 years because of what? The sin of the Canaanites are not yet full. So there's a period that you can see, if we take that same type of thought, because God doesn't change, that God is long-suffering, and he's waiting. And that this judgment, though, is pending, isn't it? The judgment's coming. The judgment's coming. And that's an application for all nations, even the world. And that doesn't matter how many walls you put up. It doesn't how much you lock yourself in and try to feel secure and safe. You're not going to hold out. You're not going to be able to resist. It's going to come. And each day, the people of that city watched this procession. And it didn't, it probably took more than 30 minutes to go around that city.
That's what I was going to say. And then I'd also heard that like on the outer, there was the people like in the homes there, they were already ready for war, and they were on the fences. But I wondered why that they weren't killing them bow and arrow or whatever.
Shooting at them, yeah.
I mean, you have these people, thousands of men surrounding the city, and it's just like, are they laughing, saying how they think they're going to take us? What are they doing? That's silly. Okay, so they marched around the city and then they stopped. They went to their camp.
The first day when the army appeared, the people were standing there going, okay, in these walls, they're probably battle ready. They got their bows ready. They're like, all right, game on. Here they are. Okay, there they go. They're on the other side. They're looking for a weakness. They're probing us, and all of a sudden, wait, what? They went back into the camp and sat down.
Yeah.
Next day. Okay, here they are. Guys, get on the wall. Here they are again. Okay, this is it, man. They walked around, and now it's going to happen. There they go. They're going around again. Okay, they're on your side, and they're looking around. Okay, where are they attacking? They're going to come in. Wait, what? They went to the camp again. They just blew those horns. Day 3, they line up again. And the guy on the watchtower, hey, okay, I know. 2 days. They're messing with us. They're messing with us. Get ready, guys. Hey, wake that guy up. Get his bow ready. Come on, man. And there they go. Here they listen, look at him. And it's the horns.
But they don't have any weapons.
Huh?
They don't. Joshua and his army evidently don't have any weapons. They're just walking around.
They're just walking. They're not even prepping the walls like normal enemies. They're not like, shooting back on the wall. They're not
trying
like,
to climb,
slinging
ropes
rocks.
over.
They're just walking around with blowing those horns like a band or something. And they got that silly little thing that's got poles on it. And these funny guys in that weird dress, they're all dressed up. They stand out. I mean, if you're looking down from the walls and you're seeing this, and you're seeing those 7 guys in a different dress, you see these other fellers carrying this box, got this like weird looking like wing thing touching. Come look at this. and then they're blowing ram's horn. You're right. They're probably going, you got to do a little better than that, boys, if you're going to get over here.
Yeah.
And so the first day, you could see that from their perspective in Jericho, they're looking down and going, okay. And then they just go to the camp. And then the next day, they just go to the camp. Next day, they go around and they go to the camp. Day 4, they go around, they go back to the camp. Day 5, they're probably going, attack us already. Come on, man. What are you waiting for? What do you mean? It's either attack us or just go on, because obviously it seems that you can't get in, right?
Yeah.
The best you can do is blow horns and walk around us? But what's interesting is what's really walking around them? What's going out there and appearing at first to very threaten and scare them? That's the Lord's judgment. The Lord's judgment is going around them, and they were afraid at first. And each day they became a little more complacent with it. The best they can do is just circle us. The Lord's judgment is going around. I don't see a weapon on them that's going to harm me. That's people today. The Lord's judgment is circling. It's circling. And at first, when we're aware of the Lord's judgment, what do? We get scared. We go, the Lord's coming. You know, you might hear a sermon and somebody, realizes their salvation is in jeopardy. They're not living their life right. And they're like, there's this day coming. Christians are the same way. We become a Christian because we're in fear for our soul. And then he doesn't come.
Become complacent.
15 years of being a Christian. He ain't here. The Lord's judgment is here. It's coming. The Lord's judgment is coming. And that's where the symbology I see, feeling very secure in their technology and their advancements, not looking at why are we having to fight this battle? What is the problem here? Well, because we're sinful. We're an abomination. Look what we've done to people. Look at our ungodliness, our immorality. They can't see that. All they can see is that this judgment of a threat and not the cause of why it's coming upon them. Again, that's the same way many people, whenever things happen, and whenever this judgment, the final judgment as well comes, people, it doesn't matter how hardened you think. And, the Lord may not have come on the Monday on the eclipse. Sorry, right? Everybody was ready, weren't they? And a little bit on edge. I mean, come on. I bet you there was even some Christians kind of going, well, maybe, it is a full eclipse. I mean, it's a totality, and it's one of the most unusual ones. And you kind of go, there was darkness when the Lord was crucified, or did all this, which it wasn't an eclipse, by the way. But, we just, and then it doesn't happen. But, well, you're not coming. The judgment's coming, isn't it? The judgment's coming. We look at the standard. They look right at God's mercy seat in plain view in front of everyone. One of the things was everyone was probably standing on the walls on day 3 and feeling safe. And they're sitting there looking at the presence of the Lord because that's where he dwelt, between the cherubims on the Ark of the Covenant. That basically was the Lord going around demonstrating to them that his judgment was coming. And them feeling comfortable and thinking that somehow they're going to be able to go without any serious consequences. And that is the exact same thing that happens. So they basically, just for time-wise, we see that that's exactly what they do. They line up. So this is not just a judgment. This is a fulfillment of almost everything that's going to be happening. This is like a little snapshot of what's going to happen to every kingdom that he brings down of the Canaanite kings. This is an example of the faith that they're going to need every time they go. That it's not going to be you that's going to bring down their defenses. It's going to be the Lord. And so this is as much for them. You may not understand, and I think perfectly you said it. Sometimes even today, we look at the requirements for salvation and we think, what? Just get wet? Really? And yet we'll make up other things to think that we're safe. That, oh, no, you can just do this or you can just do that, And it is. It's kind of like marching 7 times around the city is almost the equivalent of silliness that people sometimes put upon baptism. That it's just not there. It's not.
How can that save me?
Yeah, how can that save you? How can we take this wall? How can we take this city? And that is the frightening part. But again, it's given them time again to just look and see. It also reminded me of the picture described of the judgment when God comes, that every knee will bow. Everyone's going to see it, right? I don't know how it's going to happen, but on this little round ball, when the Lord comes, everyone is going to see this. Nobody's going to be able to say, man, I missed the totality on Monday. I was in there, cleaning my house. You're going to see the judgment come. And every knee is going to bow. Everybody in that city saw the Lord coming. And they saw this judgment that was before them. And even in that, I'm sure there were some that were still mocking him. Mm-hmm. Now, on that last day, he says that they're going to do it 6 times, 7 times. They're going to go 7 times around, and on the 7th time, they're going to shout at the end of it. So again, let's go back into the city of Jericho and watch this routine again. If you're standing on the walls, here we go again. But this time, they went around again. Okay, that's a little different. Then they went around a 3rd time. Okay, that's different, but they haven't changed anything. They're not starting to throw weapons at us. They're just, now they've gone around it 4 times. But nothing's changed. Go back to the camp. You know, it's almost like they get complacent. Like, oh, they're going to go around. Oh, here, hey guys, they're here again. This is day 7. Here they are again. You guys want to come watch? No, man, I've been watching this for 6 days. They just show up, blow the ram's horns, and they circle around, and they just go back and pop out, sit down, and relax. And the complacency of the judgment, how close it is. That's another thing, isn't it? With
It's
us.
that hand.
Huh?
It's that hand.
Mm-hmm. And as far as we know, that's what Paul said. You know, we need to live like this is the day of the Lord. That every day that we're living is that 7th day for Jericho. And not just become complacent. We get up and another day goes that the Lord hasn't come. You know, a judgment day will come and all of us will be judged. All of us. Good and bad. But these walls are going to come down. And we as well can become complacent. We understand the world because they don't believe it. They don't believe it's going to happen. But now let's narrow the focus inside Jericho. Let's go to that one house where Rahab's at. And when she saw them march up and set up their encampment, and she already demonstrated faith. She's got a covenant. She's got a covenant, think about it, with these men that they promised that they would rescue me out of this. And what is fascinating is, what is she instructed to drop out? A red cord. What were the Israelites instructed to put on theirs to identify? It was a red marking on the house so that when the destroyer came in, that it would pass over them. And this isn't blood, this is a red cord. But it was a way, in the same way, when God's judgment was coming, that it was going to pass over them.
She did what was required of her. And
She
that's why I
did-
say there is a requirement from God.
But she still had to have faith. And even while it's being executed, while she's watching this terrible, fearful army that has destroyed everyone they've come into encounter with, the very thing in which she knows she's fearful of and understands the power and the faith is there. She is now on that side of the wall. She's still on that side of the wall. We are on that side of the wall. That's where we live. We are also the inhabitants of the Jericho of the world. And the Lord's judgment's coming. And how you handle it, you know, as you watch. And when it does finally happen, it's going to be terrifying. There's a part where even those who are faithful, to watch something like this is still a terrifying moment for us. Joyful, but still, when we watch this earth melt away, every one of us are going to have a moment where it's going to just cause a little bit of terror, isn't it? And you'll even know, you have the foreknowledge of what exactly is going to happen, don't you? We know, but I know it's just like when death comes for us. If we don't make it to judgment before and we die, even that on our last moments, if we're so fortunate, you know, that we expire, there's just this moment, even our faith, as we start to cross over, there's a little moment of that, but we have to then just go ahead and put our faith. Rahab and her family are looking out and seeing the same thing happening. But you notice their attitude versus everyone else? There's no hope for anyone else in that city. But they're on the same side of the wall except for Rahab and her family. So as she's watching this happen, they didn't tell her. You know, they didn't send a messenger in and say, okay, this is the battle plan. Okay, Rahab, when you come out and you look, we're going to walk around there for 6 days, you know, once a day. We're going to be blowing horns. And then on the 7th day, you know, Rahab, you're going to look and you're going to see us go around 7 times. We're going to blow the horns. Everybody's going to shout. The walls are going to come down. Then we're going to come in. She is just as ignorant about exactly how it's going to happen. It had to be terrifying for her as well. Are these men going to be faithful? Mm-hmm. And what, from her point of view, she must have been going, why would they? These men came in and I saved them and they're going to say anything. So I don't rat them out when they're on the run. They're good. Yeah, sure, Rahab. Wink, wink to the other spy. Yeah. We'll make sure. You just make sure you take this cord and put it out there. Put it out the window. And okay, then I won't tell anyone. Okay, and they get outside the wall and go, phew, boy, we got out. She thinks we're going to come back. I mean, why would she not have some doubt? And why is she any better than anyone else that this judgment's coming upon her? And thinking again that in the middle of battle, there's collateral damage all the time. You know, I mean, whoops. But we find out that that's not, because they were true to their word.
But what I said last week was God will take every walk of life as long as you will do what is required.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is also another aspect, of course, of Rahab, is that it's a teaching point historically from this point on about Rahab. Mm-hmm. That the Jews, when Jesus came, could have figured out that God was a God of all. And that she, by demonstrating her faith, mm-hmm. is why, you know, she became such a hero of faith. That she was able to demonstrate how much she did trust him. But I just know, just like any human, you had to wonder, were these men truthful? Or just saying it so that I wouldn't rat them out? And now they're coming in. And so the instructions, though, they're given is whenever this happens, what are they to do with, what detailed instructions are they given when these walls come down?
The 2 men who spied out the country are to go into Rahab's house and take her and whoever is in that house outside the city.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things was given to protect them, deliver Rahab and her family. And then the other thing, destroy everything. Don't take anything.
Well, they were to take everything that she had. Bring out the woman and all that she has, mm-hmm. in 22.
But everything else.
So take stuff for the treasury.
Except, anything that was taken of value, silver, gold, stuff like that, was to be then devoted to the treasury and not to anyone else.
Right.
Individual.
Not to take it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
As a souvenir.
As a souvenir. So, now let's go back and think about, ancient warfare. Even the Romans, and almost all of them, all the armies, ancient armies. One of the paydays was victory. And payday was victory because they could go through the homes, mm-hmm. and if they found things valuable, the individual soldiers could collect it, take it off the bodies, jewelry, mm-hmm. and that was kind of a bonus and a motivation to say, hey, come on guys, just think, when we get done burning and killing everybody, we're going to get paid. Not only, from whatever they might get supplemental from the Roman legions, but every army's done that. That was a norm. But this isn't the normal army, is it? So this is where we look at this and somehow make this something unusual. It is unusual, but it's because God is the one that sustains them. You're not doing this battle to enrich in yourself. There's nothing in this battle, this victory, that is physically prosperous for you. This is as much a victory of spiritual warfare, and that's it. And you're not, because guess what would motivate them at the next battle? In the next battle. We got to get in there faster because old Bill, he's quick. You see how many bags of gold he got? Man, look at his tent, man. That guy, I don't know how he does it, but man, he's dragging out bags of booty, man, and bounty. He's just like dragging that stuff out. That ain't fair, man. We got to kill quicker. Because we want to load up more so we can take it. It changes, doesn't it? And it reminds them that we're not here to get rich. We're not here to prosper. We're here to bring God's judgment upon the people. So that's one of the most important things is it's not. But the silver, gold, and vessels of bronze are to go into the treasury. And everything else in verse 21 devoted to destruction.
Or otherwise, God calls it an accursed. You will be accursed if you do not do it this way.
Mm-hmm. God sees even the animals as something that's a product that's been contaminated. And this is where it made me go back and think about, what did the sin of man in the garden do to nature? It caused a curse, didn't it?
On the land, that's right.
Look what it did to nature. This world is suffering environmentally. And I'm not talking about our cars and our cows and our methane gas and all that. I'm talking, go back to the Eden. In Eden, the world that God built for us was so beautiful and pure and self-sustaining and everything that when sin came in and we were removed from it, and then you take the flood and the dividing of the continents and you have all this destruction that occurred, this world's been suffering.
Yeah, not only man died, but so did animals and plants and living
Animals
things.
suffered, plants suffered,
Yes.
because they all became caught up in that abomination. Some of the ones, the geologists that I trust, that a lot of them can see that they've talked about the pre-flood condition environmentally, geologically, and after the flood, the violence of the volcanic, the magma coming through, the division, the ice ages that it triggered, all these things that happened, that from that time, for 6,000 years, this earth has been going back to an equilibrium. And so we've gone from major ice age to mini ice ages, things like this. That there's this, the earth is still, I love what Paul says, groans, doesn't it? You're a geologist.
That's one of the theories. The earth is like an organism, and if anything happens, it heals itself.
And it's like the earth, I think it's this Genesis history. And this geologist was saying that's exactly what you can see in a very, very large, if you go back, in other words, if you were to monitor the tides, movement of the continents, volcanic activity, all these things that are going on, is this groaning, this shifting, because the violence that it took. It's kind of like the waves that start at first and then they calm down and the water goes back, but it takes a while for it to come back into its natural cycle. And that's what I kind of see, is this idea that what the accursedness has done to the earth. What has the accursedness done to the people? And God doesn't want you to be, in a sense, physically, in a sense, but a lot of spiritually. You are not going to benefit from the accursedness product of this civilization. And the other thing is, that's not your motivation. If you don't get the deep theological side of this, guys, just get this. You know what? We're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because this is a judgment of God. Don't forget that. This isn't just to get you some real estate. It's a much larger thing that's going on. And so they did. They burnt the city, everything in it. Mm-hmm. And they very specifically brought out just that, and whatever was according to what Joshua had said, they brought it in and they gave it, dedicated it to the Lord.
And so Jericho has never been, there have been people trying to rebuild Jericho, right? And this says Jericho shall never, well, cursed is the man who tries to rebuild.
Didn't they build, in another spot?
Yes,
Not in the old Jericho, but they built,
in First Kings 17:34, in the days of Hiel of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundation at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, which means, in other words, he sacrificed a child for this. He set it up at the gates at the cost of his youngest son, Sergah, according to the word of the Lord, which they spoke to the nun. In other words, it destroyed him, trying to rebuild again because of this curse that was brought upon the city. Now, there's always been a city, Jericho, there. I mean, come on. What, the men traveling down, remember the Good Samaritan? They were traveling where? They're going to Jericho. I mean, it very clearly, but no one has ever rebuilt right there.
not right in the place that the old Jericho was.
And if you look at, and I guess I probably should have done that, I mean, since I love maps and everything, was to show, if you look at Google Earth and come over the top of that region there,
Topology.
you could see where the digs are in this original city. And there's a Jericho, it's not there. It's not right there at all.
Well, I was wondering if it meant another Jericho. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I mean, there's duplicate city names.
What's the other city that was like that? There's another city that was prophesied about on the coast, the city of Tyre. Remember? The city of Tyre was prophesied that it was going to be destroyed and it would never come back. And people,
Alexander the Great did it.
what's that?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great.
destroyed it.
He took every stone. They thought they could get out into the causeway and get on that little island there that was fortified. And that was the exact judgment. And in the prophecy, it says that only nets are going to be scattered, fishermen on those stones. And that's true. If you look today, the city of Tyre is not where that city was. So some people try to say, well, see, no, there's a city of Tyre. Yeah, no, not that one. Not the Jericho we're looking at here either. So the conclusion of it, so the Lord was with Joshua. When was he with Joshua? When he stood there before him with that flaming sword. He stood there with that sword drawn and said, I'm here. And what was the resultant of that? Just like he had promised him. And his fame was in all the tribe?
All the land.
The land. The land. If you think their hearts were melted and afraid by them just crossing the Jordan, this was one of the most fortified cities to fall.
Just like Rahab said, we've heard.
We have heard you beat those guys, but you know what? To a sinner and a rebeller, somebody who rebels against God, for some reason they think they're impermeable. You're not going to get me.
Yeah.
And God took out the first most difficult city to bring down. And then when the word gets back, how do you think they're going to find out? They're going to find out they did what? They brought battering rams and they pounded and pounded, and then they ran and they shot their arrows, and they had these sling guys, those Benjamite guys. There was a bunch of guys, and they killed them off the walls, and they did what?
Yeah.
They walked around it and the walls fell. What hope do we have?
Yeah.
We have no hope. The Lord is on. So it's as much again about prepping them for this conquest, as well as it's going to show the judgment is coming. As much as they were circling around Jericho, that message was circling around the land of Canaan. Guys, the Lord is coming. Judgment is coming. Okay, that's all we have for this week. We'll pick it up next week as they go to the next one, which doesn't go so well, does it? AI.
Yeah.
We hope that you can join us at this coming Sunday morning at 9:45 for Bible study, 10:45 for worship, 6 p.m. next week again. We hope you'll be with us. We hope that you're have a blessed week. And Lord willing, we'll see you soon.
It's like you say, go figure. I mean,